Hey folks, Nathan here, bringing you another content overview for Final Girl. We've taken a look at a lot of stuff so far, Series 1, Series 2, Series 3, stuff in between, stuff for Series 4 that has just started to roll out in pieces. This time we take a look at the stuff that primarily is probably going to be thought of as the stuff from either the Summer Releases Game Found campaign outside of Bad Times at Buddyland, or the stuff that was initially available at GenCon 2025. Either way, what we're looking at here is going to be the Bad Times at Buddyland miniatures that were not available when the film initially released in the US as they were trying to get it in before tariffs hit. Two promo Final Girls that made their premiere at Gen Con 2025, and also the Final Girl special feature, Shriek, which premiered at Gen Con 2025. This is the second of the special features. Remember, special features are a little bit different, and they already come with everything inside the box, and technically, they're not part of any given series. Now, again, as always, full disclosure here, starting with the beginning of Series 3, I am a playtester for Final Girl, and the material that you see here was provided by Ryder Games. So let's actually start where we left off last time, and instead of going straight to Shriek, let's take a look at Bad Times at Buddyland's miniature pack. You may remember from our last video that Bad Times at Buddyland was the newest film, the first in Series 4 to be released, and it featured the killer Billy the Bear that has a whole bunch of buddies, as they're called. So we're going to need to see Final Girl miniatures and miniatures for the killer and all of these buddies, which are effectively special minions. And then the location, Buddyland, as usual, came with a so-called vehicle in the form of a security bot. You may also remember that they redesigned the packaging specifically for this film to be able to fit miniatures in the future that will eventually go in here, where you have basically a little takeaway piece to put miniatures and tokens in, then a cover over the regular sized cards, and then underneath, and no, this paper is not part of it, I just added it to make it easier to pick them up when they're sleeved, all these tarot sized cards underneath it. So here's your package of miniatures. It says Bad Times at Buddyland miniatures, got Final Girl there, 11 high quality miniatures to enhance your Final Girl experience. Remember, starting with Series 4, and you can see my reflection here, hello, starting with Series 4, what they're doing basically is each film is going to get its own miniatures box that includes everything you would normally have gotten from the series miniature box stuff for that film and the vehicle miniature box for that film, all combined together. Okay, so Final Girl up here, Spine, Ryder Games, Final Girl, Bad Times at Buddyland miniatures, 11 high quality miniatures, exclamation point, nothing on that side. Kind of the same thing here, Final Girl, Bad Times at Buddyland miniatures, Ryder Games, very much similar to what we see with how the feature films are designed. And here on the back, nothing on the other side either. It says, includes 11 miniatures for the feature film Bad Times at Buddyland. Shows them all, has all your legalese, addresses and stuff, and UPC down here. As is typically the case, their packaging has this nice plastic cover over it to keep everything from falling out. Now, if you're playing Bad Times at Buddyland, of those special minions, you had basically 5 regular so-called buddies. You have Toby, Roxy, Allie, Cam, and Raimi, all of whom just had a token to begin with that just had an image on one side and the name on the other. Well, now in the miniatures box, each of the buddies has their own miniature. So we have Toby, turtle here, Roxy, the rat, Allie, the alligator, the names on the bottom as usual, Cam, the whatever Cam is. I mean, I think he's kind of insectoid here. Maybe a cricket? And Raimi, who appears to be an even bigger rat. To me, at least. I could be wrong. Then we have the 2 special buddies, right? Boris and Billy Jr. Boris comes out if you have the epic finale Power Surge in play, and then Billy Jr. would come out if the Dark Power is introducing Billy Jr. But again, they just have tokens to begin with. And now they each have a miniature. So Boris is this gigantic miniature, Boris the Boar, I suppose. And then Billy Jr. being another small bear, like a demented Teddy Ruxpin. And then Billy the Bear himself doesn't have a token and a tarot card because he is the main killer. So he has this killer board, and normally you would just use one of those red killer meeples that are found in the core box unless you have a miniature. Well, now he has a miniature. Pretty creepy, pretty large, pretty cool. Then we have the 2 final girls for the box, typically found on the killer side of a box, Rena and Gwen. So Rena here, smacking with her mop. And then Gwen with her camera. And again, the other side, Buddyland, has a security bot, which previously just had a token, but now as the quote-unquote vehicle for this side, it has a mini. Rounding out the 11 in the box. In case you're wondering, I did just fit all the buddies inside here with the tokens. I have not put Billy in there, nor the final girls on this side. I'll put them on the other side. I know that's not the way it's intended necessarily, but until I sort things out a little bit better, that's all I'm doing for now. Again, for the moment, I have put the final girls in one well here with the tokens, Billy with the security bot here, again, just until I figure out a better way to sort them inside that main container for Billy. And of course, eventually, if we get a Season 4 storage box, we'll wind up with the cast and crew box to put the final girls in, which will let us spread them a little bit more, if needed. Before we move on to Shriek, let's look at a couple of new promo final girls that made their debut at GenCon 2025. Now, this is a little bit different. You may remember that in the past, the promo final girls typically were just a card. But then in Series 3, in the guest stars box, thanks to some stretch goals and whatnot, all of the previous promo final girls got secret envelopes. And then, as part of the guest stars miniatures box, they each got a miniature. So now, all previous promo final girls could have a card, secret envelope, and miniature. So what they do going forward? Well, again, sort of retooling the idea of what they're doing, they now have these premium promo final girl boxes that include a foil version, or I guess that's what you'd call it, like a foil reflective version of the card, and a miniature already included, along with a secret envelope for that final girl. We're going to take a look at what's in here, but I will hold the content of the secret envelopes for a spoiler section at the end, along with the ones that go with Shriek. So no sense in looking at the packaging for each, because it's basically just final girl, premium, promo final girl, nothing on the sides, address and whatnot on the bottom, nothing on the top, and the back just shows the content of each one. So there's Julie's, and then here's Meg's. Again, packaging with that pop-off plastic. Now, I have not taken the time to sleeve any of the new stuff we're going to see in this video. I will show you why when we take a look at Shriek. So we have Julie's card here. This is Julie Aaron, I believe, who designed Once Upon a Full Moon, for example. So health of 5, 5 spaces to unlock the ultimate, but notice that sort of foil effect here. Pretty cool. On the back, whoa, crazy things happening with her eyes. We have her ultimate. Retaliate is now a 0-time cost card. Oh, heck yeah. You can kick some butt without having to spend 4 friggin' time to get Retaliate. I love Retaliate. For each additional victim saved, horror track goes down by 1. Notice she has 3 of those on the other side as well, along with one that lets her take any top item card or any action card with a cost of 4 or less. So pretty solid stuff here, but a really cool ultimate as well. Again, she has a secret envelope for Julie's eyes only. Do not open until you have survived a game with Julie. We will see what's in here in the spoiler section. And then here is her miniature hanging with a cat. There's an animal theme, basically, to these 2 new promo final girls. Then we have Meg, as in Professor Meg, the YouTuber who is big into Final Girl. Then we have her card here, and a foil holographic there as well. 5 health, just like Julie. 4 spaces to unlock the ultimate in this case. So we have 2-time gain, take any top item card, take a guard card, or -1 horror. Then on the flip side, the handprint on her face, which again, kind of crazy with the foil. Her ultimate here, when you deal damage to an enemy from resolving an action card, roll a die. If you roll a 5 or 6, do 1 additional damage to the enemy and roll again. Keep repeating this until you don't roll a 5 or 6. Whoa! I mean, you'd have to be pretty lucky, but still, whoa! For each additional victim saved, +1 time. And she does have a secret envelope that we'll look at. And there's her miniature with a dog this time. That brings to Final Girl's second ever special feature. Again, a special feature is not considered part of any particular series. North Pole Nightmare was the first. This is Shriek, which is the second, which was premiering, fittingly, at GenCon 2025. And as we will see, these special features do have some differences from the standard feature film. The first difference you'll see here is foil. So we have Final Girl, Ryder Games, directed by AJ Porfirio and Evan Derrick, director of photography, Tyler Johnson, starring Mort, the teenage dirtbag.
Baby.
On the flip side, in Final Girl, Ryder Games, same stuff here, featuring Mega BG Con. That's right, this is one that takes place at a board game convention. Top there is blank as always. The bottom, as is typical, one player, 20 to 60 minutes, ages 14 plus, legalese and all that kind of stuff there and whatnot, and then your UPC. Then you have one vertical spine, Final Girl Shriek, starring Mort the Teenage Dirtbag, featuring Mega BG Con. So either way, it'll be inside your storage box, if you have a storage box to put this in, like maybe you put in the extra space in Series 3 or something. Ryder Games, Final Girl Shriek, Mort, Mega BG Con. As always, the back is going to give you some more information about the product itself. So, it's all fear and games at Mega BG Con. Mort, the Teenage Dirtbag, has come with one purpose, and one purpose alone, to sow chaos. He brought masks of all his favorite Final Girl killers and began taking victims one at a time, wearing a different mask each time. At the end of it, he would put on his own mask and kill his one true target, you. The Mega Board Game Convention is packed to the brim with exciting attendees, all eagerly anticipating the hot new game releases from the best publishing companies in the industry. They're so excited, in fact, that they refuse to leave the convention floor. You'll need to create a little panic yourself if you expect to save these starry-eyed gamers from the end of Mort's blade. Shriek is a special feature for Final Girl. Unlike normal feature films, a special feature includes a red foil logo and miniatures. Images there, important it's not a standalone game, you must have the Final Girl core box to play, of course. Included in this box. Lots of stuff we're going to be taking a look at, Ryder Games, all the legalese and address stuff and whatnot, UPC, and the information we just saw on the box. So here we have the Mega BG Con side of the box. You've got Mega BG Con, the die symbol here for the set, and a dead guy on the convention floor. Now there is a lot to unpack here for this one, both literally and figuratively. So we'll start with our BG Con board, our Mega BG Con board. So we have our rulebook here, Mega BG Con, and everything here. And this is a key to some elements of the board I'm going to talk about in just a moment. So this helps you figure out what's what in terms of space divisions. First off, for the first time ever, every single space on the board is considered a search space. You can search anywhere. And because of that, there are no symbols indicating that anything is a search space. But you'll notice that if you look at where the item decks would go up on the top, it says Food Court, Exhibit Area, General Area. So basically, the map is sort of split into pieces. This here is the Food Court, kind of all by itself. Any of these that have the yellow around it with the little spade symbol there, those are considered the exhibit area. You then have these gray areas, the event docks, the back docks, the side docks, the event hall, and your side hallway, main hallway, and center hallway that together make up the general area. I love how they got that pattern for the hallway, that kind of butt ugly pattern that you see on a lot of hotel carpeting. It really fits. Now you notice a few of these have this little double-headed arrow kind of symbol here. Basically, you can get one extra die to roll anytime you resolve an action card that's granting movement, as long as the first place you are moving from one end of those arrows is another end of the arrow. So if I'm in event docks and I want to perhaps use a walk card, and normally I'd be rolling, say, 2 dice, I can now roll 3 as long as that first movement does follow that arrow into the side docks. You'll see a few of those around the board. Also, you notice that this main hallway has so many rooms coming off of it that some of them are like 9, 8, 7, numbers you couldn't get on a single roll of a die. So instead, what happens when you are panicking from the main hallway is you'll roll 2 dice, add them together, and that's what will control the movement. Hence why the lowest one is 2, because you can't roll a 1 on 2 dice. Also, this exhibit area is a big deal because basically all the victims are so enthralled by what they're seeing from these game companies that they will not follow you out of the exhibit area of their own free will. They can move from one space to another within the exhibit area, But if you're trying to actually move them out, say from Ryder Games into the main hallway or from Ryder Games into the side docks, not gonna happen. They will not follow you. Instead, you have to try to basically scare them into leaving. And to do that, you have a pair of new action cards. Both are the same. It's called Create a Panic. May only be played while you're in a space with one or more victims, because otherwise it wouldn't do anything, right? So, 2 successes, 1 success, 0 success, no weird 3 successes or anything. On 2 successes, panic each victim in your space in the direction of your choice for 1 time total. Or, 1 success, panic each victim in your space. You may modify each panic or result by 1, again, for 1 time. So, you can still sort of direct where you're scaring them to, but not as easily. And then panic each victim in your space -1 time. So either way, you are going to get to panic all the victims in your space. It's just a question of whether you have much control over it or not. But panicking is the only way to get them to leave if you want them to, and then you can basically follow them, and then they'll follow you in the general areas or the food court. But they will not follow you out of the exhibit area at all. If I just start coughing uncontrollably, that should do the trick. Yikes, yikes. Shades of COVID. During the action phase, discard any action card to take this. So it's kind of a cool way to be able to get it too. You realize, oh crap, I need it, but I'm not in a position to buy anything yet, and I should have bought it last time. Oh no, well that's fine. Just discard an action card during the action phase, take a Create a Panic, and use it. There's going to be some really cool stuff with these different booths that have different logos, like Ryder Games, but let's hold on to that for a second and look at the other stuff first. So we have our 8 typical location terror cards. We have Deadly Encounter, Angry Customers, Organized Theft, What's the Commotion, Killer Choices, Someone is Following Me, No One is Safe, a lot going on today. You then have your 5 setup cards, the symbol being a die, which makes sense. It'll, of course, go up here. So we have First Day, Family Day, Last Day, Mega Events, and Busiest Day. We have our typical 18 item cards here. So we have 2 copies of Cash Money, 2 of Box Cutter. Then we have Giant Board Game. Yep, that could be a weapon for sure. Folding Chair. Yep, I've seen Geraldo. LARP Shield. Nice. Ryder Games Bag. Hammer. Convention Staff Bag. Energy Drink. Magic Potion. Convention Program. Coupon Book. Food. Convention Beer. And Deodorant. A must. Lots of uses here. The special one this time is Medical Buggy Keys. Now you notice here, instead of showing a picture of a token, it shows an actual miniature. Again, this is a special feature. There is no token for the vehicle in this one because it comes with a miniature by default. You don't have to buy a miniature pack or a special pack of miniatures for this film as a whole in order to get it. That's what a special feature is. Then we have our 10 events, and some of these are a little bit unusual. So we have Stampede, Nervous Attendees, Ticketed Events, Food Trucks are here, Lunchtime. And Lunchtime is interesting because notice here that Lunchtime has usage markers on it. You don't typically see that with an event card. Then we have Swag Roulette. You're going to reveal 3 booth cards. We'll see what those are in a moment. Place a victim in each space with a face-down swag token under each victim. The token follows the victim, and if the victim is saved, flip the token and receive the benefit. If the victim is killed, discard the token without looking at it. So basically, people walking around with a swag bag, and if you save them, you get the swag. What are they? That's 3 tokens with this symbol on the back, the bag. There's a 4 time, take any top item card, and reduce horror by 2. Pretty good rewards. Then, of course, we have the ones with special victims. So we have the Industry Bad Boy, the Media Starlet, the Popular Game Designer, and, wait, and? There's only 3 special victim meeples in the game. Blue, orange, and white. What are we going to do for the Annoying Reporter? Frickin' Gale Weathers. Or, sorry, Courtney Storm. Well, as you see, there's a pink special victim meeple shown there. Or I guess kind of purplish. You get a purplish, pinkish special victim meeple in the box. All right, so now we can talk about these cool booths and what's going on at these mostly fictional companies, parody companies like this one that obviously is parodying a certain game company that I can think of. And one of my favorite game companies is parodied on here as well. Ryder Games actually shows up as themselves. But anyway, during upkeep, you are going to draw what's referred to as a booth card. And if it's empty, you just shuffle them and keep drawing. Each one shows exactly where that booth is. So we have Ryder Games, Outside Down Games, Rumbleworks Games, that's one I was thinking of, Thunderworks, Hat Rock Games, Sorceress Marvels, Pristine Continent Games, Publicly Traded Company Games, ouch, Follower Games, and Outstanding Citizen Studios, and Soxley Games, then Slate Mayor Games, and Fortunate Fowl Games, perhaps Lucky Duck, with whom they just made the Dark Quarter. Anyway, each of them says what's going on here and tells you where it is, but basically when you draw one of these cards during upkeep, it says, roll a die. They all say the same thing, okay? On a 1 to 3, spawn a victim at that location. On a 4 to 6, you resolve what's called a booth event. What's a booth event? This is the back of these booth cards, by the way. Well, there's a series of 10 booth event cards here of just stuff that happens kind of like an event, except it's specific to when you draw that particular company's booth card. And sometimes you will draw a booth card for something else, like telling you where to place something or where to go or whatever. You don't actually resolve any effects when you do that. It's only during upkeep when you actually draw and do the roll for the resolution. So say you get yourself a 4 through 6. Well, you could have a free promo card. Cool. Sold out. Shoulder to Shoulder, which is using the so-called crowd token here. While you're in that space, you roll 1 fewer die when you're resolving action cards because it's just so freaking crowded in that space. Then you have Wet Floor with its token. You place that in the booth space. When you move to that space, you must end your movement there. You're slipping around. Then Mega Sale. You have a Mega Sale token here. Place that in there, and you can roll an additional die when searching that space. Remember, all spaces are search spaces. Cosplay Conundrum, Star Sighting, New Hotness, Shady Practices, and Tragic Accident. And once the finale is revealed, you're not going to draw any more booth cards, so there is a reminder card that you stick underneath the finale when you're setting up. It says, when the finale is revealed, flip this card over and place it on top of the booth deck. So you're going to flip the finale card over. Oh, I see the reminder. I flipped this, and now it says, do not draw booth cards during the upkeep phase any longer. I'll just place this on top of the booth deck. That'll remind me when I go try to draw from it again, because I'm forgetful, that I shouldn't. But I mentioned a moment ago, remember, about how I'm not sleeving any of the new stuff right now. Look how jam-packed this is. This is basically right up to the lip without being sleeved at all. Here we have Mort's side of the box. Chock full here. Mort with a little mask of Hans, of course, from Happy Trails Horror. Mort, very likely the teenage dirtbag.
Baby.
I'm going to keep doing that. And then you have the knife. Now, Mort here is a very complicated killer. In fact, I would put him right up there with maybe playing Killer from Tomorrow in terms of the sheer amount of new rules to learn for this film. Though, as you can see, there's a lot of stuff going on with the convention, but it's not super complicated. It's just a lot of stuff going on. Well, for Mort here, here's his rule book. And yes, he has his own miniature rule book, not just a flyer. There's a lot to this guy. And you'll notice here, before I take anything out, that this does have another one of those customized inserts. So this wheel here fits only standard size cards. It doesn't fit mini in a special little crevice at all. It's just straight up standard sized. And then this isn't divided into 2 pieces. It's one big well to hold a whole bunch of miniatures and a bag, as we will see. So here's Mort's killer board. Mort, the teenage dirtbag. You know what? I thought he was okay at this point. I don't know why he's going around killing people. I know he had a thing for this girl named Noelle. She rocked in kids and tube socks, and he thought she didn't know who he was and didn't give a damn about him, and then suddenly she approaches him at prom and has tickets to Iron Maiden and all this stuff. I thought everything worked out fine for him, but apparently not, because he wants to kill people. If you don't know what the heck I'm talking about, look up Teenage Dirtbag, the song that I keep hearing in my head while dealing with this film on YouTube or something. Anyway, horror starts out at 3, which is pretty respectable, and notice a question mark by health. It's gonna depend on who Mort has been masquerading as to what health he winds up with when you're actually confronting Mort himself. There is his bloodlust track, and a space for the dark power and the finale. Now, since you don't know who he is, Mort actually starts with this card, which is the same on both sides, as his basic finale just to start with. So, during setup, you have miniatures for 10 previous Final Girl killers. You have Krampus. As I'm putting them over here, by the way, bonus points if you know what's different about this particular playmat compared to the ones that are available now, and when this would have been available, given what you see there on the track there. Some trivia for you. Geppetto from Series 1. Krampus was from the original special feature. Big Bad Wolf from Series 2. Razorface from Series 3. Ratchet Lady from Series 2. Baghead, also from Series 2. Hunter, or at least the Hunter Mark V, from Series 3. The Teeny Tiny Tormentor from Series 3. Dr. Fright from Series 1. And how could you have him impersonating Final Girl villains without the iconic Hans, also from Series 1? They're basically like teeny tiny miniature versions of the original miniatures we got with their individual series. And then Mort gets his. His is just regular size, so it kind of towers over the rest over here. While we're talking miniatures, in fact, let's go ahead and look at the Final Girls that come with this set, along with the miniatures for them, so we can then focus entirely on Mort and his complex mechanisms. So we have Adrian, 6 health and no save spaces. Instead, each time you save a victim, gain 1 time. Place the victim on this card and roll a die. If the result is lower than the number of victims on this card, you may flip it over, keep the victims on the card after you flip it. These are some awesome Final Girls. I love the dynamics of these. She does have a health of 6. Her ultimate, you may discard 1 victim from this card in exchange for one of the following: +2 time, +1 health, or move 1 space. Or you may discard 2 victims from this card in exchange for one of the following: decrease horror by 1, +1 damage on the next attack, +1 die to the next horror roll. For each additional victim saved, place the victim on this card. Saved victims become currency. She then has this mini here. And she does have a secret envelope. We will look at that in the spoiler section near the end. And with a similar mechanism, we have Maureen with 5 health. Each time you save a victim, gain 1 time, place a victim on this card, and roll a die. If the result is lower than the number of victims on this card, you may flip it over, keep the victims on the card after you flip it. So same mechanism on the front. Her ultimate, once per action phase, you may discard 1 or 2 victims from this card to resolve any 1 action card from the action tableau as though it was played from your hand. If you choose to discard only 1 victim from this card, remove the action card from the game after resolving its effects. And again, for each additional victim, you stick them on the card. Again, victims as currency. Here's her miniature here. And she has a secret envelope. Now, I would note, when you are going into these boxes and you're removing the inserts and finding the secret envelopes, you're going to find something else as well. I'm not even going to show you what that is, let alone the contents of it, until we get to the spoiler section. Just know that if you're looking for these, you are going to run into something else. So, you may have noticed that on those setup cards for the Mega BG-Con, they all had a relatively low number of victims listed compared to normal. Well, that's because for setup here, you're going to basically take all 10 of these so-called suspect miniatures, all these people dressed as Final Girl killers who may or may not really be Mort, and you're going to start placing them on the board. They have to be placed initially in spaces that don't have a victim in them yet. If you run out and there's still spaces left that have no victim, that's fine, not a big deal. On the other hand, if you run out of spaces with no victims and still have ones to place, you do still need to keep placing them. You would just place them into spaces with victims, but as you do so, you'll still only place 1 suspect per space. So they're all spread out across the convention floor, or whatever location you're playing at. You then have 10 suspect cards, 1 to go with each. So here we have Baghead, Big Bad Wolf, Dr. Fright, Geppetto, Hans, Hunter, Krampus, Ratchet Lady, Razorface, Tormentor, and we're back to Baghead again. And you notice that they have characteristics on the side. 7 characteristics. Do they have mask or face paint? Series of origin, series 1, 2, or 3. And yes, Krampus says special. Height. Favorite board game style. Favorite horror movie genre. Favorite horror movie villain. And favorite Ryder Games game. All of these are characteristics that you're going to be using to narrow down to figure out which one of them really is Mort in disguise. And this is not a guessing game. This is not something where partway through the game you can just say, I guess it's so-and-so, and just randomly get it right or wrong. You must reveal all the necessary clues in order to determine who he really is before you can tackle the finale. So you're basically going to lay these out on your table, all 10 cards. We'll come back to these in a moment. You then have 17 double-sided clue cards. This is how you're going to determine exactly who Mort is impersonating. That does mean there are 34 possible outcomes. So you're going to see some repeat and perhaps something unusual along the way. To read them, you've got one of these little viewers, right? That'll let you see what it says underneath. Most recently, board game-wise, I think the last place I saw these was in stuff like the Nemesis series, although when we were playtesting this, we had cards that did have the special coating on them, and I actually pulled out an old one I had from when I was a kid, when, you used to get those sticker books like at the grocery store of Transformers and G.I. Joe and stuff like that, and they had that sort of rectangular one that you would show over different spaces to see what's underneath. I still had one of those and used that during playtesting, which was kind of fun. But this is a lot more practical, that it reveals one line at a time. Now, figuring this out might take you some time. So you're going to place this token, there's his knife symbol on the back, you're going to place it up here. And if you get to a point where the Bloodlust track has maxed out, you hit the top. Notice that top line says, place token on the horror track. You're going to take this token and place it over here on top of the Bloodlust symbol. So now, if horror maxes out, instead of the bumper, lined up right there with the little red edge, instead of the bumper causing Bloodlust to increase again, it'll cause you to lose 1 time. Now, the Bloodlust could still increase over here and cause you the +1 horror and discarding the next terror card and all that. But you're not going to see Bloodlust rise from being at the end of the horror track anymore. So you're going to take these 5 reminder tokens, numbers 1 through 5, and you're going to put them face down, somewhere. Just somewhere that you can get access to them as you play. And you have a couple of new action cards, one of which is Interrogate. So, when you're in a space with a suspect, and it can only be used when in the same space as a suspect, you can do a horror roll and play this card, which costs 3. And you're basically going to interrogate that suspect, wherever they are on the board, to determine if, hey, maybe they are Mort, or what can we find out about Mort? So, you can have a 2 success that lets you panic the suspect and reveal 1 clue for 1 time, or panic the suspect and reveal 1 clue -3 time if it's just 1 success, or at no successes, a fail, horror +1, lose 3 time, and panic the suspect, and take this card back into your hand so you can then use it again without paying the 3 again. When you reveal a clue, you pick one of these, find the number, and you take out your clue card, like so, bust out the viewer, and says, once you have all clues, flip this card to reveal Mort's disguise. Mort's disguise on the reverse side is blah, blah, blah. So we pull the 5. We're going to go to 5 here and see what it says. In this case, it says Mort's favorite genre is not psychological. So now I can look through all these suspect cards and find ones that match. So let's see. The favorite genre is not psychological. So could still be Baghead. Could still be Big Bad Wolf. Oh, can't be Dr. Fright anymore. Can still be Geppetto. And Hans. And Hunter. Oh, can't be Krampus anymore. Ratchet Lady. Razorface. Tormentor. Okay, so I've just managed with that 1 clue to eliminate 2 out of the 10 possible suspects that could actually be Mort. And you're going to do that 5 times. And in doing so, each time you're flipping over a different one and just keeping it next to the card to remind you of which ones you've already revealed. And when you finally get to the point where you've revealed all of them, you'll be able to have narrowed it down to just 1. Each time is absolutely going to eliminate at least 1 suspect, maybe more. But when you get to the point where you're down to 1 left, you're going to want to confirm. So say this was a card we were using to reveal. we're going to flip it, and the identity is going to be down there at the bottom. But there is more benefit of eliminating those suspects, because once they're eliminated as a suspect, that's not a suspect anymore. Why is their miniature still sitting on the board? Well, they won't be, because you'll remove them and replace them with one of these 9 sort of cream-colored, wooden-colored informant meeples. The other action card, Coerce, comes into play with informants. When you're in a space with an informant, 0 successes just cost you 2 time. 1 lets you remove the informant from the game and reveal 1 clue for 1 time. 2 lets you remove them from the game and reveal 1 clue with no time penalty at all, and this is a 2-cost card. So if you're lucky, you might find yourself in a space with a suspect and play Interrogate. Then it turns out that they were one of the ones that were eliminated, so they turn into an informant, and they panic, but they're still close to you. So you quickly move into their space, and now you use Coerce, now that they're an informant, to get another clue, and they get removed from the board. You can combo it if you're lucky. For what it's worth, a suspect is not a killer, or an enemy, or a victim. Although we'll find that they can act like killers, we'll see that in just a moment. But they aren't killers themselves. Informants, in the meantime, they basically act the same way as any other victims. Though I would note that until Mort himself is on the board, there is no panicking during the panic phase whatsoever. But these little dudes can still be saved, and if you save them, you get the extra benefit of -1 horror. On the other hand, if they're killed, bloodlust still increases, but you also increase horror by 1. And they're sort of tiebreakers. Normally, if it's a final girl / victim targeting, you're looking at whatever is closest, and the tiebreaker is whatever space has the most victims in it. Well, if after all that type of decision making, there's still a tie, it's going to be the positioning of these informants that breaks the tie as it goes toward the informants. And there's a lot kind of still here to discuss, but let's go ahead and start looking at his other cards and then kind of keep spiraling this all together. So, of course, he has his bottom of the body dark power cards. So we have Toxic Whispers, Anonymous Terror, Relentless Paranoia, and then the Epic Dark Power, Snitches Get Stitches. Which, again, remember, Epic Dark Power has always been, thanks to stretch goals in the first campaign, has always been something that was included within the feature film boxes themselves. We then have his 16 Terror cards, starting with Everybody's a Suspect! R.I.P. Randy. Whoever has 3 copies of this, note this symbol here, which you will also see here. We'll see what that means in a moment. We then have 2 copies of Pandemonium. 2 copies of I Want to See What Your Insides Look Like. And then we get to the ones that just have 1. Do You Like Scary Movies? Cosplay Photo Op, Meta Massacre, Swarm of Masks, Trade-Off, which I really like. You're going to resolve something negative to you up here to get something positive for you here, and then there's an action that happens. Then A Mask in the Crowd. And then 3 minor dark powers. We have Quick Slash, whenever you reveal a clue, lose a health. Notorious Reputation, during the panic phase, any suspects or informants in your space will panic. And then Stockholm Syndrome, whenever a suspect moves, all informants in their space move with them. While in a space with a suspect, informants will not follow you and cannot be saved. But you notice down there at the bottom, there's some extra text. It says, discard this card when the finale is revealed or after resolving 2 stars on either an Interrogate or Coerce card. Only 1 minor dark power can be discarded per successful resolution. So they don't have hearts on them. They don't have health on them for the killer. They're just negative things that happen, but you can remove them when you get a double success on one of those 2 new action cards. Likewise, if you're playing with a location that does have ones that have hearts on them, you don't put the hearts on them, same thing. You just put them out there and you can remove them the exact same way. When Mort's identity is revealed, these are removed entirely, which makes sense because a suspect, clues, all that stuff, more suspects, informants here, that's not going to be an issue once you know who Mort is. So what's happening while we don't know who Mort is? What happens when Mort himself is not on the board at all? He does not start on the board. What happens when you've got all of your suspects out there, however many are left, but no Mort? So what happens if maybe you pull a terror card like this, right? Or you're looking at this here. You're going to target, move, and attack. But who's moving? Mort's not on the board. Well, at the beginning of the game, you have 10 tokens one each for each suspect. Sort of a grayscale type or yellowish image there on the back to match their suspect card and the name otherwise. You're going to put them inside this little final girl drawstring bag. Whenever you see this symbol, you're going to draw a token from the bag. Whoever's token is drawn becomes essentially the temporary killer for that particular card or that particular action. Here would be the action here. If it was on a terror card, it's for that whole terror card and so on. But every time you see that symbol, it means draw a token. If you're playing with a location and a killer action comes up, the fact that you see the killer action means, okay, I got to draw a token to see who's going to do it, even without that symbol being there. And then whichever suspect matches the symbol that was drawn, they're the one that's essentially the killer for that phase. They're the one that's going to move, attack, and whatever. But you luck out, because if by chance the token you draw is for a suspect you've already eliminated, so they've turned into an informant and that suspect token is no longer on the board and their card is no longer in play out there, well, nothing happens. You got lucky. You simply remove the token from the bag. On the other hand, if there was still a suspect out there that's matching and it did become the temporary killer, the token goes right back into the bag because it could act again, even next time you draw. And so we come to the end game where you're actually going to face off against Mort himself. All throughout the game, you've been drawing a token, targeting whoever's closest, moving and attacking, using the information over there on the bloodlust track. You never know who the suspect is that's going to actually be activating. But you've narrowed it down, and one or two things is happening here that could reveal Mort. It's kind of the good way and the bad way. The good way is that you've reached the point where you have eliminated all of the other suspects and revealed Mort because you managed to reveal 5 clues. The other way it could happen is that the terror deck runs out and the finale needs to flip. At that point, you simply take your clue card, flip it over, figure out who Mort is, and go from there. Whichever one actually is Mort, you replace that suspect mini with the Mort mini. If there are any other suspects left, like if it was from the terror deck running out, you're going to remove them, and you're going to remove all the informants. So it's really just you, Mort, and any remaining regular victims. You discard any minor dark powers that are in play. The regular dark power stays in play, but will flip up if it hasn't yet. Then you grab the suspect card for the killer. Let's say it was Hans that you revealed, or that got revealed by the finale flipping. You are going to flip it over, and they all have a finale on the back. So let's look at those. We have Mort as Hans, Mort as Dr. Fright, as Krampus, as the Tormentor, as Razorface, I love this art, as the Ratchet Lady, as the Hunter, as Geppetto, as the Big Bad Wolf, as Baghead. Now you notice here, using Hans as the example, there's a few things on this card. You got your new killer action, that's not new, you got the name. Here is the health for Mort now that you've revealed him. This will vary. Lowest is 6, highest is 12. Though Ratchet Lady does fittingly have sort of an unknown amount because it's 6 plus 2 additional for each unrevealed clue. That is the other major part of these cards. If the terror deck ran out, and that's why you flipped it, you didn't actually discover the identity, he's revealed himself, then you're going to look and see how many clues out of the 5 you didn't reveal, and you get penalized for it in this text up here. That's to suggest using the tokens that were used to track which clues had been revealed, and put whatever the appropriate number is of unrevealed clues as a token actually on the finale card, the suspect card. But to fill out the track, this finale is gone, replaced with whatever one is appropriate for who he actually was, and the battle commences. Now, if you don't want any spoilers on the contents of the secret envelopes, it is time to stop here. Again, we've covered the Bad Times at Buddyland miniatures, the 2 new promo Final Girls, and Shriek, the second special feature. We'll be back with more coverage of Final Girl, of course, as more items are released. But if you're into the spoiler stuff, we're about to dive into it. So if you are not into spoilers, stop watching now, and thank you for watching. You've been warned. Alright, let's get into the spoilers. So first, let's take a look at those promo Final Girls that we saw originally. Here are their special secret items from the secret envelopes. We have Julie's Mazzy, and as you can imagine, just like pretty much every other time we've seen, whatever it was with them in the miniature reflects whatever it is that they're going to have as their sort of weapon or whatever inside the secret envelope. In this case, Julie's Mazzy, the cat. Now, Mazzy has 0 chill. You have to hold it in one hand. Once per action phase, if the killer is in your space, Mazzy claws them and they receive 1 damage. Otherwise, you can pet Mazzy for -3 time in order to decrease horror by 1. Mazzy is not considered in your backpack, but the card may be kept there because you don't want to like shove the cat in your backpack. And only Julie can use it, which is typical for those secret items. Again, they're just item cards. You have your special rules here as usual as to how you can set them up, just differing by the artwork there. Same thing here with Meg's, because Meg has Meg's Loyal Mutt Mifa, or Mifa? I think it's Mifa. Go get him! Name I can't pronounce. Deal +1 damage when attacking enemies in your space. You may discard Mifa when the killer enters your space to deal them 1 damage and move them up to 2 spaces away, and in their movement, kind of chasing them off. Mifa is not considered in your backpack, but the card may be kept there. From Shriek, we actually have 3 secret items here. Let's look at the secret envelopes for the 2 final girls first, because that's kind of expected here. Again, just sort of like the regular little sheets to tell you how to use them. But Maureen has Maureen's Hammer. When attacking with the weak attack action card, you may resolve the weak attack a 2nd time with a new horror roll. Nice. And then we have Adrian's Beretta. If the killer has 3 or fewer health remaining, roll +1 die when attacking. So kind of giving you that adrenaline rush bonus, except early. And then there's this. This is the other thing I mentioned you would find when you're picking up your inserts for Shriek, looking for those secret envelopes for the final girls. Do not open until instructed to. Seriously, you'll spoil the surprise. This is one of those cool little things, like the kind of stuff that Ryder Games tends to do with their games. I won't spoil it, but there's a crazy one for one of their hostage negotiator products that I dearly love. So, secret finale envelope. You could run into a situation when resolving those clues to figure out who the killer is that it basically points you to this envelope and the card inside. Here's what it is. Mort has an accomplice. Replace one suspect with the Mort miniature and use the other suspect miniature as the accomplice. They each start with 6 health. Place a new final health token next to the killer board and the accomplice's health above it. For each unrevealed clue, give each killer an additional health. Both killers will act during the killer phase. To win, you must eliminate both Mort and the accomplice. Flip it over now. Which accomplice is it? Well, that's what the clue card is going to tell you when it's telling you to pull this card out. So there's some variation even with that. So Mort gets a killer action. The accomplice gets a killer action. It says to follow the instructions on the back of the card, obviously. And this is, of course, unsurprisingly, the epic finale. Which, is kind of interesting because there aren't regular finales in this one, right? So the epic finale has to be one of these weird suspect-based cards. And here it is. So this is basically, the twist of Scream. Pretty much every Scream, there's got to be at least one other killer. Surprise, Sydney. Or Adrian or Maureen. Like Maureen Prescott. Anyway. And now that wraps up the spoiler section. So now we really are done taking a look at this wave of new products for Final Girl. Again, Shriek, the special feature, 2 promo Final Girls, Julie and Meg, and the miniatures finally for Bad Times at Buddyland, which had its feature film already released earlier this year. We'll be back with more Final Girl content overviews as more films are released.